Nice.
That one's going as well. That one's going as well. You know the deal.
I do indeed know the dealio.
I'm going to put this on airplane mode because it kept buzzing last time.
Oh, actually, that's a point. Mine's on loud.
It's never done it before. And then I did a podcast with Jim Sim recently. And I looked at the audio and it was full of mobile hiss. Which was ironic because Jim's a sound artist. So now I just assumed it was maybe Jim. Like. Laying off things, but welcome to the podcast.
Hello again.
Yay.
But you're in my house this time.
I am. We're sat on different sides.
We are. You nearly always sit this side near the window.
Unless I'm not in my own house.
But I always sit this side because I like being near the window in my own house.
That's strange though, because I'd like to look out the window.
I mean, I don't know if you've looked out the window or not, but...
Yeah, I'm just nosy.
It's a bit, it's not very interesting. There's a gate, there's a handmade gate that's falling apart, but other than that, you cannot see, other than just the abyss of where I throw all my things that I don't really want to look at.
That's what I call my mind. So we're in Norwich, for anybody who were previously in Lincoln.
Yes. Because I did what move here? You've
been back here, how long now?
2 years, pretty much.
Yeah. Because you moved. You came and did the podcast. Excuse me. And then you were talking about moving.
Yes.
And then you moved.
Yes, that is correct. So I ended up... So after uni, I moved back in with my parents.
I forgot you were in uni.
Yeah, I know.
It seems so long ago.
I forget that I went to uni quite often. In fact, when I was like sorting out my stuff to like bring here and that, I found a load of my old uni work, and I was like, wow, I remember doing that. Why did I do that?
I don't see that so much from uni work. That's college work for me.
I still have that as well.
I've burned most of that.
That painting is actually part of my old like A-level work.
That's a nice painting though.
Yeah, that's why I didn't go and skip.
Yeah.
It's
not like an angsty self-portrait like my college work.
No, there are those. They're just not on the walls of this house.
It's some terrible work. Anyway, carry on.
So I moved back in with my parents for half a year. Then moved into with someone else, just until I got myself on my feet, because I got a job. I've been at my new job for a year now, so it's not really a new job.
No. It's not quite new. A year's not that long, as we're finding out.
Yeah, this is true. So yeah, because I don't drive, so I had to be able to go to and from the city. And like the buses from the tiny village where my parents are, they're literally twice a day. Right. And it didn't go well with the shift pattern that I needed. So I was like, well, I'll just move then, because that's obviously cheaper than learning to drive. You know, lots of sense was made.
Yes.
And and when I could, I ended up moving into my own place, and this is said place.
That's a busy 2.5 years.
Yeah, it's mad.
You finally slowed down.
No.
Got a regular job?
Absolutely not slowed down at all.
Got a cat?
Well, I've had the cat for a while, but she's adapted very well.
Almost
to moving with me.
Like,
pretty much, yeah.
You stopped.
But yeah, it's weird. So now that I have this regular steady job with this steady nice income and a place that I'm going to be living in for more than 6 months, because that's my usual. Every time I move is about half a year. I decided to launch a website and get back stuck into my art again, and just decided that, you know what, I can do 2 really full-time things at once.
Yeah,
that's normal.
That's good. So I was trying to. I mean, we just chatted about. I say we chatted. It was like 2 sentences. We can alleviate, and the audience doesn't know that not much has gone on behind talking in these microphones. They can hear us now, but that's the point. When you last came, obviously I'd seen you perform music, and I didn't know anything about your painting and all your extra bits, because I'd seen you perform at Witter and all that kind of stuff. So I think I introduced you as a musician.
Yeah. But now...
But now you're...
No, I have very little to do with music nowadays.
You classified as painter, or are you classified as general artist?
Well,
Artiste.
what would we say before? It was just like... Just...
Nuisance?
Yeah, just too busy for my own good. Just creative in general. I would just go with like creative.
General creative.
Anything that I can try and have a go at, I'll have a go. But nowadays it's more, I will actually not start projects I know that I can't finish. Whereas before I'd just like have lots of little things that I'd be doing and they'd all be unfinished. Whereas now I'm like, oh hello, I actually do commissions and I actually make this project. Oh, this Christmas I want to paint Ian Beale's face as Scrooge, so I will be doing that.
That's a reference I haven't heard in a while.
Well,
Ian Beale.
Yeah.
I want to say Coronation Street, but I don't know if that's right.
I think it's EastEnders.
It could be EastEnders. It's all the same. It could be Emmerdale, apart from the fact it doesn't take place on a farm.
Yeah. But so now I actually have structure to my creative madness. Like, well, she says, and there's literally paint tins all around out of view.
That's still structure, though.
It's working towards something.
You still have a table, which hasn't got stuff on it, so it is still at least segregated.
I've only had this table for about 2 weeks, and I've lived here for over 2 months.
Clean.
So, literally, like, there's a rug on the floor right now, and I used to just sit on the rug, and when people came over, I was just like, oh, welcome to my dining room.
I mean, it's a nice
Let's
rug.
sit on the floor.
It brings the room together. I was talking to a friend of mine, Jen Darby, because we were discussing that whole idea of creatives and different ways creatives work, and how some systems work for some creatives and some don't. So she sees the work I do as quite formulaic, because I have a regular job, and then I still fill the rest of my time with creative stuff. So even though it's creative and chaos and all that kind of stuff, there's still a structure to it. It's like you have a work life and you have a creative life.
It's like you have your own sort of internal timetable.
Yeah, even if you don't want to, it's there because you naturally created it. Whereas some people let it essentially run their life.
Yeah.
And then lose tether of it. But they're happy to do that.
Yeah, I would not I tried obviously a couple of years ago. That's how I was in, and I realised that for my creative output and my mental health as well, that just wasn't working for me.
Yeah.
I think that's sort of why I didn't do as well at uni as I'd like to have, because I had all these other things that I wanted to do that I had far more interest in, and I ended up doing sort of neither.
Yeah, I kind of wish I'd done that at uni.
Yeah?
My uni, I approached uni the same way I approached senior school. I go in, I get a brief, and then I twist the brief to be able to do just what I wanted to do anyway.
That's fair though.
And then I didn't really do anything outside of that. I did shorts with my friend Matt, who's been on the podcast this year actually. He's trapped down in London.
Yeah.
And yeah, we kind of did little bits like that, but I didn't really let it take it because I was still very from the the point of view.
I know what you meant. It's cool.
Of got to make money from it at the end of it. That's the only reason I went to uni, was to get the degree to make money, which is quite different to how I run my life now, because I just give work away.
That's backwards. It's not really work then, though, is it?
I don't see it as work, but then I still can charge for it. I do charge for it, but I just give stuff away. A friend, Lisa, who was recently on the podcast, she'd ordered Potatropy. So she ordered 3 copies.
Got my copy upstairs.
I should do. Everyone should have a copy. Product placement.
Is it product placement, though, when it's your own show?
I don't know. I guess I feel like YouTubers do a lot of it, and I class that as product placement.
Yeah, but the platform is YouTube and not theirs.
Maybe. I guess this is my platform, but it's going on YouTube.
Anyway.
It's not sponsored. I should sponsor. Why do I sponsor my own products? That doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. So she had 3 copies.
So she ordered 3 copies, and I sent her 6. I don't remember sending her 6. But I
Did you send 2 separate parcels of 3?
No, I just sent 6.
Right.
In one big parcel. And then when she told me about it and offered to pay for it, I said, "No, don't worry about it.
Just have
it. You've got 3 copies now. Give them to people.
Pass it forward."
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Unintentional passing it forward.
Yeah. You just got to fight through it. know. I think we're well established that I don't know how to advertise my own work anyway.
No,
I mean,
not at all.
I mean, you get commissions and stuff. How do you do yours?
It's literally word of mouth. So I tend to get commissions from the same people that I sell prints to. So like I have a very small buyer base, I suppose. I also put my work up in like local cafes and restaurants. Although recently one has gone missing.
Yeah, I saw a post about that.
That's
I'm like, how do you lose a painting?
They shall remain nameless, and we are sorting it out. When I say we're sorting it out, I mean I am constantly messaging them until they reply. But
technically, it's theft.
Technically, it is theft. They're a limited company, so
get paid.
Anyway, but it is a local place and I can literally just wander in.
Yeah.
Boys like so I only lend out places that I can walk to or get a taxi to.
Makes sense.
There's a little cafe that hopefully I'll be setting something up in soon on Magdalen Street in Norwich.
Nice.
Their Ancestors Coffee, and I was just in there doodling. And then I noticed that they had stuff on the wall that was like local, and I ended up helping the guy take photos for his Instagram because he was trying to do the thing in the photo and also take a photo of it.
Yeah,
and I was like, "Do you want me to take the pictures for you?" Because it was really quiet in there. Yeah. And then he was like, "Yes, please, thank you." And then he was like, "By the way, like what you're drawing," and I was like, "Thank you." And then I said about the stuff on the wall. He was like, "Oh, you should put your stuff here." And I was like, "You know what? Wonderful."
Simple as. It's as simple as that.
I talk to strangers. That's pretty much how. Yeah.
That's the benefit.
Yeah.
You talk to strangers.
Yeah.
Because
like I used to be a very sort of shy individual, and I think we talked about that before, and then I went into Panto.
Yeah.
Well, from that, I'm just like, well, technically, like my mentality is technically I never actually have to see these people ever again, so I might as well talk to them. And then the anxiety in my head that's just like, what if you do this really stupid thing? And I'm like, well, if that happens, I just don't have to go in there.
I come across potentially as confident in a lot of situations.
I think it's because maybe you broadcast your internal thoughts.
Maybe. Height, like being tall helps as well. It suggests confidence, despite most tall people being quite shy.
Have noticed that.
Yeah.
Whereas like shorter people like myself, there's that little person syndrome.
You got to shout up.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're big, you spend most of your time just crouching a little bit and being told not to knock things off shelves. That's usually the way. But yeah, I don't approach strangers, or I struggle to approach strangers, unless there's a system in place, which is something I found when travelling, was I can do any situation, providing I know the rules to the situation.
Oh, I see. That makes sense.
So you go to a restaurant, if there's a sign which says wait to be seated, not a problem. I can do it. The sign says wait to be seated. Because then if I'm wrong, I have a sign and it tells me I'm fine. Whereas if I go into a coffee shop or somewhere and there's no indication of what to do, my brain just goes, well, we're not staying here. Unless I have someone with me, we're just not staying here. This isn't happening.
See, well, I am perfectly happy with just asking, just being like, so do I come to the counter or do you come here right now? And especially with like, that whole pandemic thing that's happening. It'd
be a shame not to mention that, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Oh, the current times. But yeah, like I ask because I don't want to be in the wrong.
Yeah. I think the pandemic helped me in the sense of everywhere started producing instructions. Arrows on floors became a wonderful thing in shops. I really
do like the spacing.
Yes.
Because that's something that I really don't like if someone's standing too close behind me.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I can't see you. Don't like it. And I will now say, can you step back, please, if I feel uncomfortable. The other thing weird about recent times is, obviously masks. Everyone's got to have one or wear one.
Yeah.
I had one before the pandemic struck because I like I can't say it.
Anonymity.
Yes, that word.
Yep.
Anemone.
Anemones. I like anemones.
So I like that, and I had the excuse of I walk up and down a main road every day to and from work.
Right. Yeah.
So, and being like shorter and stuff, I was breathing in a lot of car fumes because I'd be walking backwards and forwards like during rush hour.
Yeah.
So I got these cotton masks with stupid little faces on them. It made people not walk near me because who does that? And now it's a normal thing.
It is quite strange. A friend of mine, again, Lisa. She's auto. I always want to say auto-asphyxiation, but it's not auto-asphyxiation. She's autoimmune deficient or something along those lines. So she always had loads of masks just because of like cold season and bits and bobs like that. And then suddenly, she's just like, I already have like 20.
Yeah,
what
was the thing? I bought a pack of 5, and now I got them for what, £2, Amazon, and now the exact same pack are like 25. And I'm like,
3 altogether at this point in time. 3 masks.
I have them littered everywhere. There's
I tend to just use the same one over and over again. Though.
That's not okay. That defeats the object of
It's like
wash your mask.
If I go somewhere, well, no, I wash them.
Your mask.
I wash them, but it's like it tends to be the same one because it's like used it goes in the washer. By the time I need to go out again, that one's dry.
Oh,
so
that's okay then.
Same one again.
That's all right.
I did have to repair it again the other day though. But then I went to try and buy a second one from the same shop, and this is the second time I found this in the last 2 months. The shop's closed.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, and it was on Etsy as well, and most of what they were selling was masks, so I couldn't quite understand it, because it was like I'd suddenly gone on, and they'd managed to sell all this stuff, and then just closed their shop.
Maybe it was like a side project for whoever really ran the Etsy shop, or because the market's very, very saturated, or tax evasion.
That's what I'm going with.
Okay, that would be way more fun.
Yeah.
As like a narrative to that happening.
The same with this ring though. Like I went to buy another one of these rings and then I found out that they closed. I was like,
oh. I don't really wear lots of rings because I've got tiny fingers, so they slip off all the time. But I'm also like, because I'm painting, I'm doing things in there all the time. It's just impractical.
I don't know why. I just suddenly decided to try and make myself wear this ring because I bought it ages ago, and then in the last like 6 months, I just started wearing it every day.
I guess the same.
To force myself to. I don't know.
I think the same probably happened with my necklace. So I wear a St. Christopher pretty much every day, and I feel weird if I don't.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, I want to have this about my person all the time now.
That's
and
fair.
now, yeah, it just becomes habitual.
It does.
Yes.
Strange. I don't know if people make conscious decisions to do that. It's like habit forming. Do you make a decision to form a habit?
I wish I could form like good habits, like, I'm going to make my bed every morning, and that became habitual.
That's a weird habit though.
But no, I'm just like, you know what, I need to wear this piece of metal every day, otherwise I don't feel quite right. It's literally, that is it. That is the mentality.
That's the truth of anything. I think it's kind of like the thing now, obviously, because we're all locked down. Well, not locked down. Tiered down at the moment. For anybody watching this, we're both from tier 2, so we're fine. And it's distance.
Distance? Yeah, this table's what, a metre and a bit.
Yeah.
Also, both live alone. So.
Yes, and we both live alone. So we're in our own little bubbles.
The danger that you have, though, is because I still go to the office to work. But we do basically drink sanitizer as we go to and from, and I'm the only person on my whole desk where it's wonderful.
And I can't infect the people I work with because we're all working from home, so we'll be okay.
We did that for a bit, and some of my colleagues still are doing that. But for me, because of like living on my own, I was just like going mad.
Yeah.
I ended up then locking down with my parents for a bit, and that was lovely to see them every day. I want to make that very, very clear, and I did enjoy my mother looking after me up until I had a curfew, or if I had to. Well, when I say had to, no one has to go out during lockdown. But like when I popped out around the corner, I was like, "Where are you going? What time are you going to be back? What do you want for tea in 3 days' time?"
Yeah.
I don't know what I want for breakfast now.
I couldn't. Like, I like my parents. Don't get me wrong, but I couldn't live with them, and they know this. We go back for 2 days at Christmas usually, me and my brother, and both of us, we grin and bear it through those 2 days.
Nice.
We've lived alone too long. We've lived away from family, like we don't even have curfews, and my mum's nice and she'll say, yeah, no, take whatever you want from the fridge and all that kind of stuff. But it's like, she cares too much in a way.
Yeah.
Because there's a level of, I don't want to be offered things like every 10 minutes.
I think that's just that's a very mum thing, though. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. When I was at my desk, and my mum was like, "Do you want a coffee?" When I'm on the phone, I'm like, "Yes, please." And then she'd bring some biscuits and like I put on weight. It was wonderful. I struggled to do that, but somehow I managed to put on half a stone, and that was purely through my mother's love.
Love weighs so much when it comes from people.
The weight of her love was literally physical.
I feel like you can get that on like a nice little poster of the weight of love is about the same as a pack of biscuits. It's just whatever.
That was more than one.
Yeah.
It was just one packet a day, maybe.
I do feel like the main way people kind of like made it through. I say made it through was the like middle of it.
We're allowed out now.
Yeah,
that's
for now.
Nice.
Yeah, it's by forming habits. Like the amount of people I've spoken to who said they've given themselves a routine, whereas that's something which I did naturally anyway. Even before lockdown, it was kind of like, no, I'm gonna. Even if it was just I've got to get up by a certain time.
Yeah.
I work nights, so it's like I've got to be up by 11. Because if I'm in bed at 1, that's a bad day.
Yeah.
Because I wasted most of the day essentially. But I feel like that escalated for a lot of people.
Yeah. So like my shift pattern, it changes. So sometimes I'll be working 8 till 5. Sometimes I'll be working 11 till 8 p.m. And it's just, I think that's what threw me a little bit, because I had my routine, but then I had to change that routine depending on what shift pattern I was on. And then that didn't line up with, the rest of the world necessarily, because places were closing early, like shops and things. So if I was on a late shift, unless I got up like really early, which isn't really a natural thing for me. I mean, it is kind of because like the cat screams at me until she's fed. Bless her.
She's falling asleep now.
Yeah, she's just chilling.
Casually chilling.
She's actually being quite quiet, which is unusual. But yeah, unless I got up early, then I'd like to literally get food and things like that. Then it wasn't happening. And I have my own sort of structure of what I want to do. And like I'll be like, I want to do this, that, and the other today, but I won't set myself times necessarily because that's as a creative, like you obviously, if you're not in the mood to do something creative, it's very difficult to make yourself do so, and your output will be considerably less, or the actual final product will just not be how you want it. So I like having that sort of balance between, I will allow this bracket of time to be for this if I want, or if not, I'll do this, etc.
Yeah, I kind of thought of that as like a little hack the other day, which I feel like a lot of people kind of forget, because you see a lot of people, especially through Twitter and whatnot, which I've gotten weirdly into this year. I wasn't into Twitter, and then this year I got really into like just tweeting dumb shit constantly.
I call them my little mind farts.
Yeah.
There's this, I want to put it out there into the void, but it's not worth verbally saying to someone.
The amount of time I write a tweet though and delete a tweet is quite high. So that if you follow me on Twitter, you're only getting about 20% of what I actually intend to post on Twitter. I think like last night I watched The American Tale with Fievel the mouse. You ever seen The American Tale? Okay, so animated film, American Tale, about a small mouse from Russia and his family who moved to the US, and then in the second film they moved to the Wild West.
Amazing. It's
an amazing film. They're fantastic films, and it has some great songs and soundtracks in it. But my brain was just like, hang on a minute. They moved from Russia to New York in the 1800s. And then they moved from New York to the Wild West, like in the next movie. And the kids don't really age. So they must have been in New York for like a week, because a mouse only lives so long. And my brother was just like, the people of the world need to know about this, so we're going to it. I feel like someone needs to contradict me.
They move more than I do.
It's like they were in Russia, and they must have travelled all the way from Russia to the US.
I mean, back then, that in itself took, what?
That's got to take
half
a year, right? Yeah.
A year.
They get on a boat from Germany. I don't understand why they took a boat from Germany.
Well, they can't swim, Graham.
But Germany's landlocked.
Oh, God. Well, they could have gone. Rivers exist.
I suppose, yeah. There was a lot of questions it was raising. I feel like that's now what I've used Twitter for, is to raise a lot of questions. What was I saying? I don't know why I mentioned Twitter. Back to the point.
Can't remember.
But I've got into the habit of using Twitter. Oh, because you see a lot of people struggling with mental blocks. And like, oh, I'm struggling to create, especially during like pandemic and lockdown, and everyone was kind of going on of, how can I create under these conditions?
Yeah, I found that lots of people who aren't necessarily what they wouldn't refer to themselves as creative, trying lots of new things. Like baking became massive. Like, especially around here, I don't know if it was the same up in Lincoln, but like shops wouldn't have any flour.
Yeah, yeast, flour, just gone.
Which one?
It's like, why are you doing this to me? And I just bought a bread maker. Last year. It was my Christmas present to myself. I bought myself a bread maker, and then suddenly there was no flour anywhere.
No bread for you.
So then I bought 2 bags to tide me over. It was a hassle, but yeah, it just became this thing of people kind of struggling, and then people kept saying to me, "You've managed to keep creating," and I feel like there's a cheat which I use, which I didn't realize I was using it until like yesterday.
Right.
In that I don't create all the time. I just don't. But it looks like I do. Because when I create enough content to last the parts where I'm not creating.
So you're like, get it all out in one hit.
Yeah. It's like when
That
I create,
makes sense.
I'm prolific. I make, 5 drawings, and I'll write some stuff, and I'll note some ideas down for, like podcasts, I'll record 3 at once. And then I won't do anything for a while, because I won't have the mood or I won't be in the right mindset. And then I just dribble feed it into the world.
Yeah, no, I'm very similar. Like, I'll start a couple of different paintings, and upstairs is just I've got a spare room which is just absolute a bomb site of just paint everywhere. And there's like a spare bed kind of shoved in the corner, which is just used as a shelf and a drying rack.
That's all the bed really is, really.
Yeah.
Shelf for people.
Yeah. But like,
Not quite a drying rack for people, but
no.
Don't dry yourself on a bed.
No. I don't think that would end well. Or you get a bad back from the cold.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
But like, I'll prime like lots of canvases at once. I'll do the base layers of a couple of different things, or you'll see that I'll go to start a painting, and then I'll be like, oh, I can't do this bit now because like this layer needs to dry. Let me start making this thing instead that I want to do. Either that, or I find that when I'm being creative and I've got time to do so, I'll also go on a cleaning binge.
Okay.
So if I have to wait and like waste time, I'll then get the cleaning done, because it's the same kind of like motivation. I find it's the same part of me.
Right.
So like, if I'm not necessarily in the mood to be creative, I'll find myself cleaning instead.
That's interesting.
I think that's just generally like if I have energy though.
Okay.
It might be that.
It could be that.
Not sure.
I use cleaning as a thing when I have no energy.
See, nah, I would just leave it.
Like when
I do just leave it.
When I'm completely kind of devoid and just kind of sitting and I'm not doing anything, I'll use cleaning to fill the gap, because it feels like accomplishment even though it's not really accomplishment. So like my bathroom gets cleaned when I'm depressed.
All right.
Because I'll be sad, and then I'll be like looking in the bathroom and be like, well, this bathroom's a shithole, and that's not helping. So I'll fix the bathroom because it's easily fixed.
Yeah.
And then I'll leave it alone, and then every time I walk in the bathroom, I'm like, I feel a little bit better.
See, I wish I had that mentality and could do it. When I'm shutting down, basically, I'll stay in bed. And that's something that when my days off in lockdown, when I didn't have anything to necessarily I had to do, I would stay in bed.
Yeah.
And I'd just be like, resting is productive because I'm re-energizing. But realistically, that was just depression.
Yeah.
Still sometimes is.
Yeah.
It's just the way that
depression takes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's been good having this house as a project to do, like painting the walls and the skirting boards, and just there's lots of little things I can accomplish. Like even painting one bit of skirting board, I'm like, that's one little thing that's done.
It's a nice little thing.
Yes, even if it's painted really badly. I've just seen a bit over there and it's just missed a massive patch.
In November, my grand's don't lay down on my legs when my legs are open.
She's very clumsy. She'll just fall.
Oh yeah, I'm going to be painting a roof at my grand's in November. And she was like, yeah, so we want to... It's white. And it needs painting white. And I was like, okay, so why does it need painting? It's like, because it's tarnished and you can see like bits. And she's a smoker. She's just like, so it's a bit beige. I was like, okay, I'm going to do it because I'm a good grandson. You're going to have to point out bits I miss because you're asking me to look at off-white on white. And I'm colourblind. So this is going to take longer than we expected to. And then she's like, oh, we're going to do the walls. And I was like, okay, do the walls, no problem. She's like, we're going to go beige. And I was like, currently, what colour are they? She's like, they're beige. And I was like, okay. Or it wasn't beige, it was maroon. And I was like, that's basically just beige.
So you're red-green colourblind. Am I correct in remembering that?
Yeah, so I'm kind of, I'm kind of between all of them.
Okay.
Which is nice, you know. So it's red-blue, but then also green-blue. Basically just anything in between primary colour I struggle.
Fair.
That's the way it is.
Fair enough.
Turquoise is just blue. That kind of thing.
Yeah, no,
is that kind of rule.
My partner is also partially colourblind, and the way he sort of described it was that everything in his imagination is like to try and sort of put it across to me, because I'm exactly the opposite. I've got Mears Erland, so anything with a red light waves in it seems really, really, really bright.
Right.
So he was like, just desaturate your world.
Okay, that's an interesting way of thinking it.
And anything especially that's orange and green, he'll get the two mixed up.
Yeah.
So my front room...
I classify as that as proper colourblind, whereas mine I don't classify as proper colourblind.
Okay. But like my front living room is like a dark green. And he looked at it and when it was finished, and he was just like, he was like, I really like this colour. Like, I really love red.
Yeah.
And I was like, honey, that's not red, but thank you for trying.
It was a nice thought.
Yeah.
The way I describe mine is if you take any photograph and you reduce the contrast on it, you're getting a better idea of what I'm seeing. Because it's like when you view a forest, people see 30 shades of green. I'm like, no, I'm seeing one shade of green.
Oh, I see.
It's because one of them becomes dominant, and then everything else just gets wiped off.
Fair enough.
Makes everything nice and...
So imagine, for my optic nerves, like translating things, imagine you take anything that's red, like this mug handle, or even the walls. Obviously this podcast gets broadcast in black and white, but this is bright orange. It's extremely bright to me, so just up all your contrasts on absolutely everything. So that includes, white as well. So I struggle to read unless there's like a blue tint over it. So I have to reduce the contrast of things if I want to be able to like pick out details. Yeah, she's just chilling.
Just chilling under my elbow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay, yeah.
But yeah, that's probably why my work's far more colourful.
I was going to say, because your work's, I mean, even kind of glancing across, like I love work like this, but I'm always very aware I'm not getting the whole picture.
So with that one in particular, there's lots of literal neon colour paints that are in it.
Yeah.
And they're like the little tiny splatters that you can probably see, the lines of the twigs and things. Yeah. Lots of those are in neon orange, or like a bright lilac, or like there's even like gold and pink and that in there. But that's to like produce texture.
Yeah.
So I'll look at something, and then I'll be able to pick out maybe colours that can't necessarily be seen. I don't know whether they can't be seen otherwise, but I'll be able to hone in more. Like, so white daisies with yellow middles, like that are just in that jar dying right now. They've got a lot of red in them and a lot of orange in the middles.
Okay.
Kind of looks a bit brown, but when I go to paint it, I'll start with the base colours of like red for a white flower.
So you kind of deconstruct the colour.
Yeah.
And then take it back to its primary purposes.
Yeah, so when I'm doing portraits, I'll start with red, yellow, and just start kind of doing that. And then, so my highlights I'll always do in yellow, my mid-tones I'll do in red, and then all my shadows I'll do in blue. And then any colours in between, that helps just build up the layers of the paint and the face. Like I'll bring in green around the eyes for when people have, like if people have got dark circles, they'll look like they've been punched in the face in my paintings, like straight up. Or like pale people, when you can see the veins in their face, that'll be just bright purple. Yeah. But then I'll layer the tertiary colours over the top.
See, that's what I can't do. I can't layer. I think that's like because I paint very rarely, like real rarely.
I was gonna say I don't think I've seen a painting of yours.
Most people won't have seen a painting of mine, that's like I paint, and then I don't even show people those paintings. Those are, they're not even for me. They're just, I don't even know why I'm painting. I'm just painting
just getting
today.
it out there.
I'm just making something.
Getting it from your head onto a canvas.
Yeah, but when I paint, it tends to be very abstract because I can't control a paintbrush. I can control a pencil, but I can't control a paintbrush. We just have different ways of being. The fact that I can't grip a nib and it just collapses between my fingers, and this is not. I'd rather paint with my fingers, and I get very involved in mixed media with it.
I mean, I'm some and some. I really like just cutting up old credit cards and debit cards and just scraping the paint as well. I find that very satisfying. Or sponges as well, just like, especially when I'm in sky, I'll do that very textured because I can't paint clouds, but I can paint the impression of clouds.
Yeah, I like painting clouds.
Yeah.
Clouds are nice. But yeah, it's kind of, when I make work, I come to the other side of it, and again, I'm very aware that if I've used colour, I'm not seeing what other people see of my work.
The one thing that really frustrates me is that you can never ever see through anyone else's eyes.
Yeah.
So like, I can interpret what I see and I can paint what I see with these colours, maybe amplify them a bit.
Yeah.
But like, nobody else is actually going to see the painting how I see it. No one's going to be able to see the vibrance, no matter how much I try and throw in there.
Yeah.
But the same is, you could be seeing something, you could be seeing that plant, and I won't be able to understand, like, because even if you try and replicate it for me, that replication is still not going to be what you see because you see that replication differently.
But that's why I love it. I love that.
But I just want to be able to see all the things.
It's like having a wonderful secret.
But I want to know the secrets.
I think this is what I find kind of like because occasionally I kind of sit and think about the podcast, and I'm like, why do I do the podcast? Is the question I pose to myself.
Because you want to.
And it's mainly just because I want to. And I'm like,
because you can, because you want to.
But at times I feel like I'm stating the obvious. And I'm like, okay, but what's obvious to me isn't obvious to everybody else. And that's the only reason I make it, in a way. It's like,
okay.
Essentially all I'm doing is documenting my own thoughts and then conversations through the podcast. So when I put something out and I'm like, this seems really obvious and this has been done, at the same time I've sat there in my head and was like, yes, it has, but maybe not.
It's
from
not
someone
been
else, yeah.
It's not been done from your viewpoint.
Yeah.
Whereas like my sketching and things, that's it's like I use that as documentation. Some people write diaries, some people do podcasts. Whereas I'll just draw what's around me and I'll annotate the pictures sometimes with like what I can see, what I can smell, what I can hear as well.
You do a lot of that, don't you? You do like a lot of environmental sketching.
Yeah.
And it's something I've never done. I don't know why.
It's nice because I enjoy my own company.
Yeah.
Hence living alone. And if I'm going out somewhere, like going out for coffee, even in this pandemic age, it's something that typically you don't do alone unless you've got a book or you've got, in my case, a sketchbook. Like if you see someone just sitting eating alone, it's, well, to me anyway, it seems bizarre. Or maybe they must be on a business trip or something like that. Whereas, to just sit and enjoy food and drink on your own isn't really just a thing, or at least it's not in the UK.
Yeah.
So I'll take my sketchbook with me and then I'll just document what's around me as like a little pastime. Okay. Because obviously, other than the people like serving the food and drink, which you say, yes, thanks, please, thanks, and things like that too, you're not talking. So for me, that's talking to myself.
I get that. I find that quite interesting as well, because so during the pandemic, I got I think it was like 6 rolls of film developed.
Okay.
From doing various photography, and then I kind of looked through the photographs and it's like, I don't have a purpose for any of these photographs.
I have that for most of the things that I own. I just have them because I do.
Just because I'm taking them. All I've done is actually just documented 6 months. I've not really done anything with them. I have no intention for them. Even now, they're just kind of there, apart from doing a few Christmas cards and stuff. And I was just kind of like, it's literally just keeping myself occupied. But then to me, I use them as memory triggers because I have a lax memory when it comes to a lot of things. But if I can visualize it, it brings back all the other details. So I just like look at it and go, okay, what was this? Oh yeah, and that was that day, and it could do this, and then I'll remember a bunch of junk about that day. So the little kind of like notes, but like sketching has never been that kind of connection for me.
See,
it's always been more of a connection to the imagination.
I'll sit down and sketch, and then I'll go away, and I can't show you because I am getting lots of them framed. Because like when I'm in places, those places are like, oh, I really like that. We'll display it because it's our place. But I'll look at it and just be like, oh, hang on. You know, I remember sitting exactly here. I remember hearing exactly these noises. I remember like what I could see, what I could smell when I was doing it, because it's like ingraining that memory into the paper, I suppose.
That's interesting. It's like putting it. It's the crazy thing I think I find about like kind of visual medium is you have so much more data in the image than is actually visible. Especially like what I was saying with due to perspective and people's different life experiences and stuff like that, you can never tell how something is going to be interpreted.
Well, that's true of all art, really.
Yeah.
Like with some modern art, some people just don't get it, but a lot of the time it's the process and the meaning and the emotive feeling of it, like with that. And someone can look at it and be like, what? Because they don't have any connection with it whatsoever. But then the person doing it, or the person that knows the background story, or just happens to like be good at connecting with visual things, they'll be like, oh yeah, this colour represents this makes me feel like this. And then they can stand and stare at it for like so long.
I do worry about the amount of pandemic art which is coming.
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to be a wave, and I feel like there's going to be some disappointed artists because they won't get the reaction they want because everybody's experienced it.
Yeah.
Like a lot of art is personal, comes from personal experience, and is created in order to express your message. But
everyone
when
has the same
society has
message.
been through that message, it's like, oh, well, what do we do
Well,
now?
it will swing one of two ways. It will be like, oh, everyone understands it and everyone can relate to it, or it will be like, okay, cool, but what's different about that?
Yeah.
Which a lot of art again is like doing something different, putting your stamp on it. So if it's not showing your stamp or your viewpoint on a particular thing, it will just be another piece.
Yeah. I think I've made a conscious effort during this period not to make anything which is referential to it. That's become a real thing. Kind of like living in Lincoln. I don't make artwork about Lincoln as a standard.
See, the amount of sketches I found, there was nearly an entire sketchbook just of the cathedral alone.
I've taken one photograph of the cathedral in 10 years. And I took it during lockdown.
But you live there.
Yeah, so I don't need to photograph it because it's there every day. I walk out my door and I look to the left and I'm like, cathedral, still standing, we're good. If
still
I move
there,
out of Lincoln,
can't really be that bad.
And it was the one of the few places which was unaffected visually by the pandemic, because you go down the high street, and I took a few photographs of the empty high street, and it was empty, so it was like, you can tell this happened 2020 during March till whenever we were closed off. But you went up to the cathedral and it's like, nope, still looks big and gothic-y.
There's a guy I know in Norwich who does lots of different creative things, musician, photography, art and everything. And he did sort of a photo series of just him. It was him documenting his life, but he titled the thing Norwich Unlocks. And so it was just lots of, once we were able to go out, it was the city unlocking again. Yeah. And it was also everyone's distanced. It was just people still thriving. Yeah. And like technically, like some people are very like, oh, photography has to be very like this, and it has to be very technical. But for him, it was well, at least I interpret it as like him documenting what's going on around him, and like that was great. Yeah,
give me something to do on my walks.
Exactly.
That's why I did it. But it's very. I do find that I don't create what I'm in. I don't document what I'm in.
See, I'm the opposite. Everything around me is
documented.
Not everything is documented as such, but like that's where my art comes from. That's where my inspiration comes from. Like I often think that maybe it is to do with like my ears and that I can notice tiny things, so I'll get those tiny things and I'll amplify them for everyone else to see, even though it's something that is just very mundane, day to day. And Norwich Market, which you'll see later. We'll go to it. It's known throughout the UK as being the biggest, outdoor market, or not necessarily the biggest. I don't know if that's factually correct, but one of the best.
It's correct now.
It is now, because I brought it into being true because I said it.
Biggest market in the UK.
It might be an untruth.
Definitely bigger than the one in London.
Yeah. But that's documented in so many different ways. And I'll do lots of different sketches and paintings of that in different mediums and depending on time of year. But then there's Owen Mathers is a big Norwich artist around here. He does ink drawings and watercolours and things for lots of different local things, but that's his stamp on it.
Yeah.
And that's his way of showing what he sees through it. Because he's much better at capturing the motion of what's going around as opposed to anything else.
I was just trying to think whether it was kind of not a personality trait, because essentially everyone uses art as an escapism. That's why we're all initially getting into art in any way, shape or form, and then unless you kind of just decide to make money from it. But I'm just kind of that whole idea of thinking about kind of zines and fairs and poetry and stuff like that, and I feel like there's a very not clear but solid gender line between the artists I've met who make work about the stuff around them and the artists who make work about stuff which isn't around them, is that most of the men I meet don't focus on what's around them, whereas most women I meet tend to make something quite personal and is usually connected to things which is just around them, is things which are affecting them. And I don't know if that's like a personality thing or a gender thing, or maybe both, because then there is a lot of
I don't know. I've never thought of that before.
Yeah. I'm just kind of mulling over as an idea.
Maybe.
Because when I think
probably make for an interesting dissertation.
Good. That's a podcast in itself. That's a whole 30 minutes. And I'm not allowed to go down gender lines again. Last time I discussed gender, we got told off.
Oh dear.
Well, it'll happen. But no, it's a strange personality thing, because like you say, there is artists who do focus on cities and where they live. I think New York's a great example of that. New Yorkers tend to focus on New York. Yeah,
I went to New York just before lockdown, actually.
You did? I've just remembered this.
Flew back the day before the borders shut. I was very lucky.
Lockdown New York.
It was a bit stressful.
Yeah.
So I was intending on staying there longer, and then I had to obviously come home and then lock down immediately. But everything back home was unfolding whilst I was away, so I was oblivious to it until I got this message saying, "Oh yeah, the American borders are closing. JFK is closing. You need to go. You need to go home now." And to get a flight was insane. Yeah. But I bought a whole sketchbook and I filled it with New York, because someone who loves architecture, New York, and just lots of little doodles. And again, that was my diary for when I was there. Yeah. And it was great.
Like if I visited New York, I'd take a lot of photographs. But if I lived in New York, I probably wouldn't photograph New York.
It's a very inspirational city. There's so much going on around you. It's almost like an assault on your senses. If you enjoy that kind of thing anyway. Round every corner, around every street, there's something to focus on. Or at least there was for me.
Yeah. Toronto was a lot like that.
I've not been.
To the way I'd compare Toronto, because I had a very... I was going to say, not awful experience? No, that's the wrong word. Different experience. So I went to Ottawa, which is the capital, and then I went to Toronto afterwards. And Ottawa was quite nice, quite open, quite refreshing, well laid out. Toronto reminded me of London. It was just you came out and it was just stuff everywhere. It was, like you say, like a barrage on the senses. And you just walked in, it's oh good God. I've come from nice open air Ottawa to what is this?
Dense.
Yeah. But again, I took loads of photos on the trip, but if I lived there.
But you've come back obviously with all these photographs.
Yeah.
Have you done anything with them?
I put them on Christmas cards. But I only did that this year.
How long ago did you go?
Last year. I wasn't even going to do that.
So
I catalogue things. I don't know why I'm cataloguing things. Because I got thinking about this
for yourself
very much the other day.
And that's okay.
I live alone. So if I plan my life in the sense of I'll always be alone, then someone's just going to clear my house out and find cupboards full of photographs of a life. And if they're not like me, they're not going to keep them. Like if I cleared a house and found them,
I think
I'd
that
keep
if someone went through your house without knowing you,
them.
by the end of it, they would.
I don't think they would.
But from all your photographs, which are essentially your memories.
Essentially.
Even from like...
It's very stylized though.
Yeah, well, even from the things you have on your wall to the mugs that you choose. It says a lot about a person. You can read people through their houses. Well, I get so nosy at people's houses.
Yeah.
I love it. Like Grand Designs at George Clark's Amazing Spaces.
Right.
Love those kinds of programs because obviously, like, the architectural side is the main focus of the actual house, but different people, different personalities, they like having things just so. When I was at uni, you don't really do a lot of going around people's houses for dinner and things. It's more like pre-drinks and I didn't like student accommodation because it was all the same and you couldn't personalise it. But the things that I have around my house now are some of them are the same things that I had on my wall back then. Like up there, like my skiing stuff, like that was up there because otherwise it doesn't feel like home to me. And that, for me, the skiing stuff is a memory, and that's on display. But if you go to someone else's house, they'll have something else, and you can be like, oh, that's the thing that you did, even without necessarily having to learn about it. You'll be like, oh, that's the thing, that means this, or even down to the colour scheme that someone uses. You can, like, for me anyway, I'll read into that.
Again, I feel like I'm the opposite. I'm more interested in what people don't put on display and what people hide.
Don't look in that cupboard then. It's just full of my rubbish.
It's when you get to a house. I love going to, like a middle class beige white sofa. Have a few ornaments, just like perfect silver. Not to reference my mum, but there'll be a giraffe somewhere because my mum has giraffes. Little ornamental clock on the fireplace, and you walk into that and there's nothing. And I'm like, this is amazing, because you said to yourself, this is comfort. This is how I want the world to perceive me. And it's this stuff.
Not necessarily how I want the world to perceive me. It's how I want to perceive me.
I want to perceive myself this way. Someone comes in, they're going to perceive myself this way as well. And I walk into that and I'm like, oh my God, what are you hiding? I want to see every cupboard, and I want to see all the stuff which you do not want people to see. We had a question once at work. And someone was like, oh, if you could spend a day in the life of any celebrity, who would you pick? And I picked Barry Scott from the Silly Bang Adverts. And my manager...
His dirty house.
He just could not understand it. I was like, this man sells cute cleaning products, and you only ever see him on, like, fully shouting at you on the TV. His house must be amazing. And if it's spotless, what is this man trying to clean away? I was like, that's all I want. I want the gritty bits. I don't care about what you live in. Just show me the bits you wanted to hide.
Like, if you like, I don't have clothing on around my ceiling, which like I wish I did, but you'll be able to see that. That's why it's so cold in here. But there's paint around, and to me that, like, because I just didn't do it very well, but for me that's fine. Because it still looks nice. It's a bit messy, but so am I.
To me, that just shows you decorated the room.
But other people look at that and just be like,
or someone would get a decorator in because they'd want it to be perfect, and I'd be like, see, that kind of person.
I mean, I had lots of help from like family and things like that, and they helped me do things, but for me, like, the tiny things like that don't matter. And they'll just stay like that now until it really does bother me one day. But I had a point to this, can't remember what it was. But what I enjoy decorating, so I wouldn't get a decorator in unless it was something I physically couldn't do, like the ceiling. Vertically challenged people struggle with ceilings.
I don't know why, but my height came into my thought yesterday because I took my fire alarm off the ceiling without standing on a chair.
My fire alarm is on my table upstairs because I can't get up there.
I just reached
even
up
with a chair.
I did it, and I was like, I have done this without thinking. Most people wouldn't, and I couldn't. I don't know if I feel privileged.
My dad changes my light bulbs if needed, or puts up lampshades for me, because he's nearly 6 foot, I think, or just like touching 6 foot. Yeah. So a lot taller than me.
It's easy to forget that you're tall, man.
I forget that I'm small all the time, especially if I'm being like a bit of a loudmouth.
I think that's something actually, because we've all been at home for so long now. We're kind of we know what our spaces are. We know like size and shape of our spaces. So when you go back outside, there's suddenly a reminder that the world is not built like to your height. Like, why are things at different levels? This
is a very typical terraced house.
Yes.
So the layout will be exactly the same as probably yours in Lincoln. Yeah. But even when I was giving you directions like what house was mine and things like that, I was like, oh, by the way, the hedge outside is really overgrown. Like, I can walk under it, but you might need to duck. Because I haven't cut it back because it doesn't affect me. Yeah. It just is about here on me. Yeah. But it probably was like just honey. I think it's honeysuckle that's out there. And yeah, that would probably been like here.
Just for you. It came down to just below my cheek. So you could go a little further before it bothers a postman. Or, you know.
Don't want postman.
Unless you got a short postman.
I don't know. I've not met them yet.
You've not met your postman. Live life without meeting the postman. I've been getting really in depth with post recently.
Yeah?
Yeah, it started to dominate my life.
Oh no.
Just curiosity about post.
How so?
So I went through I was doing products from my website, figuring out postage, all those kinds of things, and realising my different options of postage and what I could get away with, and then figured out that I could post everything in a box which would fit through an envelope slot. And thus reduce my postage costs. But then kind of started delving into what different countries accept and don't accept, and different rules and bits and bobs like that. And now I just seem like my postman's like a wizard. Because they have access to all this information. Obsession has become a thing during lockdown.
Everyone has to have something.
Everyone's got that habit which they've started to pick up. I just hope people who've taken up creative things during lockdown keep it going.
Yeah, no, I hope so too. Because people have had more time to do it. I think that's one of the main things. Lots of people have been furloughed and they've not been able to do these things. Or I was talking to someone in Homebase and they were like, their sales have gone jump because people have time to do all those little odd jobs. Yeah. And getting paint and things for this place. I've spent a lot of time in there as well. Because I can't go to the pub after work, for example. Well, I mean, currently, yes, I can technically, but I wouldn't feel comfortable doing so. Yeah. Unless it was like outside, but it's cold and I get cold. Yeah. But yeah, what's it? Bowling, the bowling house, which you would have walked past on your way here. They started doing food more so. Just so that they could do something, but just little activities and things to do. You can't, or at least you can't do in the same way as before.
So people are doing more at home. I think this is a thing which I keep trying to remind people is that especially with offices going back, or people kind of like going back to their industries, it's like whatever made you happy during lockdown is the thing you should carry on, because a lot of people will just go back to doing. Like, they'll easily slip back into 9 to 5, watch whatever on the TV, go out on the weekend, especially when, like, a vaccine gets developed or life returns to somewhat semblance of normal. And it's trying to remind people, it's like, no, if you took up baking during lockdown and you got really into baking and you can make some really nice things.
Stress if you're really good at it. Yeah. Please don't just make rubbish.
No, just do loads of it. Keep producing terrible things, subject everybody to it.
Throw it at people.
Yeah. It's like the whole idea of, okay, do it. Obviously, it's not going to dominate your life now because you're back at work, but still do it like once a week or something.
No, hobby.
Yeah.
I feel like people have less hobbies.
Really?
Because, nowadays, in the generic nowadays.
In a wider perspective.
Yeah, exactly, because I will, work. People work. People go home, people watch telly, people go to bed. That's the general consensus of a lot of people that I know, and that's not a bad thing. No. But with more time on their hands to actually explore other options and things to do, then people have found hobbies. Yeah. Whereas as creatives, you would say that maybe your art was a hobby that sometimes makes you money, for lots of people anyway, or it's your full-time job. But lots of people just didn't really have that, so they had time to then explore things. But then going back to work and that, it's, you know, you go, you work, you're tired, you come home, you do what I would call nothing.
Yeah.
Like we talked about it beforehand. I have to be doing something.
Yeah. Would you say, as an artist, you have hobbies?
No.
Because I was just thinking that I don't really see anything I do as having a hobby, because everything I do for fun, I eventually try to turn into making profit.
Yeah, I feel like my output, other people just happen to enjoy it. It is first and foremost for me.
Yeah. But
secondarily, for example, the website that like one of my friends built for me, Taylor Digital Marketing.
Taylor Digital Marketing.
Yes, thanks Taylor.
Pick it up.
Product placement. He has built a website for me so that I can sell my art to the masses, because I don't like Etsy purely because I don't like the way it's laid out.
No,
it's too
fine.
chaotic for me. I like things to be just da da da.
Their structure's also terrible for selling things.
It works for some people. It doesn't for you and I, it would seem.
Yeah.
But now I can sell more prints freely, because I used to put prints in places, but now lots of places are closed, or they're struggling. So why it's a lot more difficult to be like, hi, can you sell my things instead of your things, or as well as thank you. So it's just another platform. But make the print side, like printmaking side of things, is nice. When I get commissioned to do things, I have fun doing them, but it's inherently for someone else, and some things are for me.
I think that's something I've tried to do more of maybe this year than previously, is to find things which I can classify as hobbies, to stop things becoming monetary or advertising or anything like that. Like I started doing those sculptures of poly. Well, it's not polyamorous. That's not the word.
That is not.
I mean, I could do sculptures of polyamorous, but that's.
Then you have to give like all of your little sculptures names, backstories, and.
I mean, I do that anyway.
That's storytelling.
Yeah, plastisol, like clay, plastic clay. That's the word I'm thinking. There's a proper
plasticine.
Could be. No, you like oven bake them, but essentially it's like plastic
Fimo.
clay. Yeah, Fimo, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I started doing that, and in my head when I was doing it, I was very much along the lines of, this cannot become something which you try to make art out of. Just do this because you want to. Do this because you find this fun. And then as I was doing it, it became trying to stop my head going, oh, well, I could do this. And then someone would buy that, and I could make something like this, and then we can turn it into sculpture. Like, no, Graham, if you're doing sculpture, this should be for fun. This should be for you. This should be your hobby. It should be an escape. So I just stopped doing it.
That's a shame. Hold that thought. I need to snip to the loo.
Okay.
Tiny people of coffee.
All right.
Very graceful little shoving out on the side of the chair. Talk to yourself.
I will continue to. Interlude.
Hi.
Post interlude.
Toilet break.
Toilet break.
Yeah.
But we'll figure we'll round this out in the terms of thinking about kind of bits and bobs for the future and whatnot. Obviously 2021's like 2 months away.
No, that's terrifying.
Why is that terrifying?
Because like
it's going to be the same as 2020.
I know, but like
How's
this
that
year went
terrifying?
so quickly.
Yeah, it'll be 2022 by the time we get to. I'll be 32 in 2022.
I'll be 26.
Yeah, you got ages. You only need to worry in like.
Are you gonna do this thing that like all people who are a few years older than the other person they're like, so I am so old and you are so young and this is your life. I find like because lots of my friends are like nearly 30 or just over, and then they're just like, oh, you're so young, like, oh, you're only this age and blah.
No,
you're fine. This is when life gets really bad.
I wouldn't say that. Because like I always have the thing of like you get moments where you feel like that. Like I get moments where like that because I work with a lot of 20-year-olds.
Right.
So there's like a decade between us I work with someone who recently turned 21 and has never lived outside his house. And to me, that's insane.
Yeah.
Because your brain just kind of goes,
well,
you don't know anything because you've never lived anywhere.
My sweet child, you know nothing.
So when they bring to you, like they come to you with problems, your brain just goes, don't instantly tell them they need to experience life for this to be a problem.
But that, like, so if someone's lived in a certain bubble, anything outside of that bubble which is inconvenient or, a bad thing is literally the worst thing that's ever happened to them.
It's
and that's valid.
Yeah, it's a valid concern. But at the same time, your brain just goes, oh. But then I get the same thing for me because I only turned 30 last year. Why did I have to think about that?
Your mind's already starting to go.
It's terrible. But yeah, I only turned 30 last year, but I know enough people who are 35, 40, and have had enough conversations with people, especially through the podcast, who are in their 40s or 50s, who still have the same trivial problems as like a 20-year-old. So I kind of look at it and go, well, no, because your age doesn't actually mean anything. It's just whatever you experienced in the time frame of your age so far. So
lots of people will say that because I look quite young for my age, but as soon as I start talking, like, or if someone's known me for a period of time without actually knowing my age, I get a lot of people assuming that I'm older than I am. Mm-hmm. But that's because I've experienced a lot, whilst not necessarily having, been on the earth as long. Yeah. So I quite often get people asking me if I'm late 20s when I'm not. Yeah, you're like mid-20s. Yes, almost. But then with that, I think that is one thing which I've never really had anxiety about years disappearing. Like with the whole idea of this year just flying by. Because I kind of look at it and say, it doesn't really matter because this year's just been a year of experience. I feel like the reason it's not terrifying, but the reason it seems just like, oh my goodness, is because there's so many things and opportunities that were missed, or because not being able to do things that I wanted to do this year. I mean, the main one was getting my own place, and I've done that, and getting it sorted, because for me that's always been a milestone I wanted to achieve. But outside of that, it's what you do. Yeah. It's whatever you do. I think I was thinking of this on the drive over, that a lot of people are seeing 2021 as a blank slate of like, yes, everything will be better. January 1st, everyone will be better. Everyone's said that since 2016 when the whole world started to go to shit. Died, and we were like, oh no. Can't be worse than this. It's gotta be, And then the world just went, you wait. I think this is the only year I've kind of looked at it and gone, right, so I'm not a believer in any way that the arbitrary time periods we applied to the months resets anything. But at the same time, I'm like looking at 2021 going, right, there's an American election in November. That changes a lot of things. We are in the middle of a pandemic. There is no way in hell 2021 January gets worse globally. Like, it'll get worse for pockets. It always does. But globally, I'm just trying to think something amazing would have to happen. And in the same sense, I'm like, that can't be terrifying. Because literally... Don't forget global warming still happening. Global warming is happening. It's like literally, the polar ice caps would have to explode in January for me to go, you know what, no, this is going to be a bad year too. This is not okay. You'd have to be sat and aliens would have to descend in February and be like, no, 2021. I was reading something or watching something and it's just like 2021 can literally do anything, or 2020 can now do literally anything, and just I will not be fazed by it. And you'll just go, of course. Yeah. So like when the locust plague hit, over, and I think it was somewhere in Africa. Yeah. Somewhere down that way. Yeah. Away from here. Continent. Bless them. Not because, UK. Oh God, that's not okay. No. And it's just like, well, of course, there's a plague. Naturally. This is just how we go. This is fine. I think, but then at the same time, I feel like I've taken that attitude a lot of my life. So when things... this is fine. When bad things happen, it's like, I have no control over this. There's no control over this. Yes, I want to do everything I can to help.
that's my main like start point of like, what can I do to help? If I can't help it, I can't feel bad about it anyway, because there's nothing I can do to help it.
Whereas I'm just, again, mental health comes into this. I'll fixate on that thing that I can't change, and I will blame myself for that.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh gosh, again, environmental things. It's like, I didn't recycle that one tin. I couldn't be bothered to wash it up, and I put it in the bin. I am the reason that like the whole earth is just burning.
Yeah.
And it's obviously not true.
Yeah. Whereas I look at a wildfire and I'm like, interesting.
Oh yeah, wildfires happened. That was really bad.
I could really help out, but I'm not a fireman.
Whereas I'd be like, I should become a fireman.
Yeah.
I should.
Well, that's
I
going to
need
take you a
to.
couple of years anyway. So.
Just run around with a hose.
Unless that wants to be the rest of your life. Like, there's some real decision making needs to be made at certain points where you're like, this is happening. What can I do to help this situation? Do I want to dedicate 2 years of my life to becoming a firefighter, to watch this one fire, which will have finished by then and growth will have restarted by that time, but I'll be a firefighter for the next time this happens? I mean, there's a level of that. There's a level of planning. Like, I recently signed up to learn sign language. Because British Sign Language are doing a thing where it's pay as you feel. So you can get introduction to sign language on their online course.
That's good.
And I was like, everyone's wearing masks. No one can lip read. Therefore, I'd like to be able to know sign language. So if I do end up in that situation, I've at least got something other than just being able to spell my name. Which would be an awkward situation when someone asks for help and you're just like, Graham.
Help.
Yeah.
Yes, my name is Graham.
But yeah.
No help.
It just becomes a question of, I feel like that's something now where, and it's a bad habit to have, I just throw money at it. Because I can. And I feel like that's...
You're in a privileged position to do so.
So it's like, I can't help in any way, shape or form physically, so therefore I'm just going to throw money at it. It won't go away, but I can keep throwing money at it.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's something.
That's
That's more than lots of people can say.
That's the, hold it down in 2021.
Nailed it.
It'd be fine. This will be going up in November, I think. Yeah. This will go live in November. That's in a month.
In November,
literally a month.
I will be extremely busy and probably non-contactable. Because
this will be your only contact with the outside world.
I'm still alive, probably.
Yeah.
So I work for a wine company. So actually, we are one of the very few people that have. I really hate saying this, but like benefited from the pandemic.
Yeah.
Because pubs and that are closing. Lots of people are drinking more. Yeah. Unfortunately, lots of people are turning to alcohol. Don't worry, there's provisions for us to stop that from happening. But business is booming, and I am doing more work at the moment now. Our whole team is. We're growing in size, which no one can really say right now, so it's weird. But and in general, Christmas time is very busy for alcohol. Yeah. Because people get together and have a drink with their families on Christmas Day and things like that. So normally it would be really busy. Yeah. And we're finding that the busyness is starting already now in October. Yes. So the 6 to 8 weeks will start happening. The overtime will. And you won't see me, you won't hear from me unless it's, today was busy and I'm really tired.
But then, as long as you come out the other side, because I think a few people have felt that their jobs have maintained or grown, or I know a few people who've had that benefit during lockdown and pandemic and everything like that, and it's like, there's no reason to kind of feel weird about saying it, providing when you come out the other side, you pay it forward. It's like, if you're going to profit from the situation, then cool. Make more artwork, which then people can have, makes them feel better, go out, donate to people, spend some time outside of that. Blah,
like
blah, blah, blah.
I keep saying we, like I'm one of the top bosses.
You said the company. There's nothing to say you don't at this point. So we could just make that claim.
Can you imagine? Hi, yes, it's me. No, we've got the ability to donate to more charities, and my CEO is donating more towards mental health charities, because not only my colleagues and myself, mental health has been an awful thing during the pandemic. So it's just like, let's donate towards that thing. Because not only is the person that's actually doing a lot of help, which is really nice to be able to say. Yeah,
it's good to work for a company which has those things.
Yeah, I mean they give a shit,
especially for,
and that's nice.
Like an alcohol company that's quite, I won't say rare, but you don't see it visibly from a lot of alcohol companies.
I suppose
Like, I know a lot of companies do, like, it's kind of like gambling. You never see the stuff they're doing to help gambling addiction because it is their business. So obviously they just keep advertising their business. But you do know it happens because they all have Gamble Aware and they all like fund and support all these different programs. So
just so you don't go straight to hell, I suppose.
Yeah. You gotta have some sort of guilt leveler, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, I sell guns, but if I support the hospitals, I'm okay.
As long as we can patch up those gun wounds, it's all right.
We will be fine.
No harm done.
No problems. I think 2021 is going to be good.
So the moral of the story is you can sell guns if you also own a hospital.
Title of this
That's
podcast.
That's what I've got from this whole conversation.
I feel like there's worse points to end on.
Yeah. Should we go explore Norwich?
Why not? Thank you for coming on the podcast.
So thanks for bringing the podcast to my house.
It's fine. That's what I do. Well, not what I do. I don't just bring the podcast to your house.
Oh.
And I just run out of battery. And we'll call it there.
Yay.
Thank you.
That made me
Talk to these guys later.
Bye.